We are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. This is Braggs in the stands. Once again, the Chicago Bears lose, and this time the Lions kind of giving back a little taste of our own medicine from week one. And, for those of the fans that wanted the Bears to lose out, and maybe we're frustrated by some lucky wins at the beginning of the year, well, you just got one back because the Chicago Bears lose in dramatic fashion, 34-30, basically sealing the deal with their season as far as I'm concerned. And now the focus falls to one George McCaskey. Sorry about that, Jake. We're both on the same page, ready to bring our beautiful smiling faces to the stage. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr., and this is my co-host, producer, and graphic design extraordinaire, Jacob Hovanek, and we are joined by a special guest, Christian Shanafelt, who we will bring on here in just a moment. But I got to tell you, Jake, for me, this does seal the deal for Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. Mitchell Trubisky's deal had already been sealed, as well as he played today. We could play the, oh, look, Mitch is so much better, should have been in, all that nonsense. And then, of course, Mitch makes the final mistake that is the most glaring mistake at the end of the game that basically seals the deal. But the irony of that play to me, because I had a few guys, of course, my ultimate troll, little Kevin on Twitter was coming at me going, oh, he's going to say, Mitch, that wasn't Mitch's fault. It's not all on Mitch, right? Because that's
you're going to say that?
That's what I'm known for saying that.
Yes.
But here's what it is. As bad as that play is for Mitch, you're going to hear most Bears fans talk about Mitchell Trubisky being the reason they didn't win the game because of the fumble at the end of the game. The irony is, if Matt Nagy just runs the ball and play calls correctly, I've bitched about two things with this team: play calling and offensive line. Well, the play calling, it should have been running. David Montgomery had been playing a great game all season. You see, as we started our game, his despondent look on the sidelines after the play had been reviewed. He had a hell of a day. It reminded me so much of the Bears-Chargers game last year when he went away from him in the vital moment, the pivotal moment to win the game, and then ultimately we missed the kick against the Chargers. Same thing in this game. You just run the ball at the end. Yes, the Lions have timeouts. Okay, you want to try to put the onus on Mitchell to win the game, and then Jermaine Ifedi doesn't block, and then all of a sudden the guy gets around the corner and forces a fumble. Yes, Mitchell Trubisky should have more awareness on that play. No question about it.
That's something that he always he's got a little bit of the fumbleitis. He's always had that problem. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's the timing of it, the play calling, and then of course the missed block at the most crucial moment, and then Mitchell Trubisky makes the most glaring mistake that of course this is the story of what the Chicago Bears have become since the double doink, and they can't get out of their own way. I call it Murphy's Law. Jake laughs at me when I call it that. But
hey, you know what? I was going to give you – this is Murphy's Law. I'll give you this on this one because everything that could go wrong did go wrong for the Bears in this game at the end of the game. So we'll give you that one.
The law of Murphy is allowed. I've been pushing it for weeks, and last year they embodied Murphy's Law to me. And now look, this week the offense finally plays a perfect game, and the defense looks as bad as it looked under Mel Tucker at times. And the difference between the Mel Tucker defense and this defense is all the money and all the star players are on
defense
that side of the ball.
Way too talented to
They've let go of the rope.
I can't believe it.
They've let go of the rope. I mean, that's clearly they are the frustration, whatever you want to say, because obviously they have a lot of talent on that side of the ball, but there's no other explanation for it when the punter pins them down at the 5-yard line, and in 6 plays, 30 seconds, boom, they score a touchdown. I mean, that was as deflating as the touchdown or the fumble that Trubisky had. So,
and there were a couple of things. There were a couple of things I would just say. There were a couple of 4th down calls that I thought were very, very questionable. Analytics will tell you that when you have a 4th and 3 or 4th and 4 in these situations, it does, given your field position, it does lend yourself to actually take a chance in that regard. And there was a 4th and 4 in the third quarter, I believe, that they decided to punt on that they should have went for. And there was one at the beginning of the game that they kicked the field goal on. And you're playing against the Lions here. It's at some point you gotta make some decisions here. And and try to put them away. And they got a little timid, and that ended up coming back and biting them. And the other thing would be the thing that we talked about all year long was just got to give this defense a lead, let them pin their ears back, see what they can do. They had a lead all day long today, and they could not pin them back.
I've been the first to say that just give this defense a lead and they'll pin their ears back and make plays. Well, they got it, and they immediately proved me wrong. So before we get to the post-game pressers, which I'm sure are coming down the pike real quick, and we all want to see what Matt Nagy has to say, and Jake's going to get us patched in as soon as that's ready. I want to bring in our special guest for the day. I've ranted enough about this team. It's time to clean house, but I want to hear what my guy Christian Shanafelt from the Chris and DJ show. He's kind enough to invite me on his podcast here in the last couple of weeks, so wanted to bring him here on the post-game show. Thought we were going to be talking about a Bears win. I saw JJ Stankovic joke that he had submitted his final, write-up for the game before it was over, and then now he's got to write up a whole new thing. So we're all kind of scrambling at the end to have like a new reaction, because I think we were all anticipating the Bears coming away with a win. Now that the dust has settled, Mitch makes the mistake. Nagy's play calling comes back to haunt him, and the offensive line also coming back to haunt this team. Where do you now stand? Do you think George McCaskey will fire anyone after this game once and for all? Christian Shanafelt.
Well, I don't think the dust has settled just yet, Greg. I mean, it's still pretty dusty out here. I'm still thrown off by what we just witnessed here 15, 20 minutes ago. I mean, 5 minutes left in the game. It seemed like the Bears were holding a pretty comfortable lead, 10 points, and they were able to, give it up. And to answer your question, I don't think this game does. I think we're going to look back in the offseason, and we'll certainly look back to these two games against Green Bay.
Well, Detroit. I agree, and let's get your complete thoughts after we hear from Matt Nagy here at the press conference now at House Hall.
First up, Dan Wiederer,
Soldier Field.
Everybody hear it?
Yep.
Matt, on the strip sack there, second to last drive, I'm curious your decision-making process to throw it there, your communication before that play, and then what you saw unfold.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's 3rd and 4, and we have to, we're backed up, or we don't really have the field position. So we have to get a first down. We have to make them use their timeouts. And, we ran a play that's good versus all coverages. It's if they show man, great. It has answers versus zero. And then if they play zone, we got answers there as well. So we felt good with that. And it's just a play, at least what I saw from the Jumbotron afterwards, is kid made a good play around the edge and was able to swipe his arm out and make a play. I'd have to go back and see, as far as the pushing up in the pocket and other guys within the route and where that was. But we had to stay aggressive there and get first downs to make them use their timeouts and try to end with the football and win the game.
Is there anything you say on the headset before that play goes off?
No. I think the biggest thing is just that play for us is it's day one training camp, and it's something that all those guys know inside out.
JJ.
Matt, we heard you guys use the word embarrassing a lot after the game last Sunday. I guess, what does this feel like? What does a loss like this now feel like? 6 in a row coming off the last one. Yeah,
this one, just the way it ended. I mean, we've been on the other end of so many of these, and now to have a lead like this and lose this way, it stings. It hurts. They all sting. They all hurt. And I think you could feel the excitement on the sideline for our guys to come out and have that energy and be able to put points up on the board. I thought our guys, we did that at on the offensive side of the ball. I felt like we were getting first downs and we were moving the sticks, and then we were getting touchdowns. And so that part was good. And it's we knew there's going to be games like this where we got to score points, but it's certainly one that hurts, and that's stating the obvious.
Jason Leisure.
Matt, why is this team falling apart the last 2 seasons?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that for us, all I know about is who our players are,
you're the head coach,
people, and how they handle this stuff. And it's not because of a want. I know that, and so it's just difficult, man. This is the life in sports, and it's not easy. It's not fun when you lose. And the only thing you can do is continue to support each other. just fight for one another and understand that it's not because of lack of trying.
Pat Finley.
Matt, you said before that you understand that questions about your job status is part of the deal here. With another loss, what are your feelings about that? Are you worried for your job?
Again, I don't get into any speculation on any of that. My job is to do is to make sure that each and every week I'm giving it everything I can as a coach and as a leader, with these guys. So I have to make sure that I do that, and any other thing that's a distraction that would be taken away from our team, and that would be not good for me or them. And so I don't even get into that.
Mark Potash.
Matt, your defense gave up 460 yards. Are you surprised, stunned, disappointed? What's the emotion that explains your response
after calling out your defense the week before?
Well, we're playing a good offense and a good quarterback. And
oh, come on, man.
But I'll have to go back and watch the tape and see exactly where that was. I thought early on what it felt like for me.
The Lions are so shorthanded for you to be like, this is a good offense.
Come on. That they converted. I thought that was big there with some of those. We got them into where we wanted them with third down, but we weren't able to get off the field with those third down conversions. So that right there is when you look back and see that. And then, the one drive where we had them, I think they were at the -4 yard line towards the end of the game, and they went down there and scored right before the 2-minute. That's the one probably that we'll look back at and say, man, being able to get them to take more time off the clock and or hold them to at least minimum a field goal. But I have a lot of belief in these guys. I love these guys to death, and regardless of the side of the ball, that's where I'm at with them, and they know that, and that's where this is right now.
Jeff Dickerson,
a man of no answers.
He's shocked right now. Totally different feeling.
Hey Jeff, we can't hear you. We're gonna come back to you here.
I'll ask Jeff's question. Matt, why?
A little bit on what Pat said. You got 4 years. Okay.
We're gonna go to Brad Biggs.
Oh,
come on, guys, get it together.
Hey Matt, I know you said you want to be able to watch the tape to see some of the things on defense, but how do you account for the pass rush failing to get home in so many games this season with some high dollar guys for you lining up front there?
The money's on the defense.
Yeah, I know. When I say going back to watch the tape, a lot of that is to see, you go back and you watch and you say, okay, are we winning our one-on-one battles?
No.
And so, because teams are going to scheme, they're going to have stuff with Khalil and with 96, with Akeem, where they're making different, jet protection chips and that sort of thing, helping guys out. So I like to see, I go back and watch, okay, are we using more coverage, enabling our guys to win their one-on-ones? And then if we are we winning our one-on-ones? If we're not winning our one-on-ones, why is it? And then, do we need to create some or manipulate some with blitzes and fire zones and cover zero, stuff like that? So that's where it's hard from the sideline in the game to see that part of it. And that's what I go back and watch and get a feel for, is how that works together with the coverage.
A couple more for Coach. We're going to go Jeff Dickerson.
We're going to end around here with Jason's computer. Sorry about that. So, Matt, you do have 4 games left. So how do you salvage these final 4 games so it doesn't just become a nonstop narrative of, is this guy going to get fired? Is this guy going to get fired? How do you salvage these last 4 weeks, which still are an opportunity that's in front of you guys?
Yeah, it is doing just that. I mean, we talked all week. We talked all week about going 1-0 and finishing. We talked about both of those things, and we didn't do that. So for us, again, this you have to look at it as a week by week deal for our team and where we're at and control what we can control. So the only thing that I can control right now for me is making sure that these guys understand.
Should we ax them?
The fight.
Might as well just wait in case
and where all that stuff's at, and then we all
Releasmo's right. Glennon is around the corner.
Glennon just took the Vikings to OT right now. So
what would be more embarrassing, Watson waxing us
is
or
this right
Glennon
now?
beating us?
Glennon by far.
It really is. It's hard. It challenges you in a lot of different ways, and that's just being as real.
This is just bullshit.
Oh, we're challenged, all right.
It's hard, but this is also why we're in the positions that we're in, is to be able to let these guys see the authenticity of your belief and trust in them. And I think the easy way out
what does that mean?
Is for, people in different positions like myself.
Oh, the Bears just kind of shut him off. All right, that's fine. That's probably for the best.
Kidding, and we'll keep an eye out for Mitchell Trubisky to enter the podium, and we'll try to listen to a few.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that Twitter. The website, they're not even holding it on the website, and there's usually post game. They're not even showing that.
He's in such a state of shock, Christian. It's like a boxer that's just taken 5 to the chin. He is stunned. Last week, I think they probably could have seen it coming. They make the QB switch or coming up, but they're playing the Green Bay Packers, a well-oiled machine. This week, it's the Lions. We all know the history Mitchell Trubisky has against Lions, and now you could just hear it in Matt Nagy's voice, completely stunned, shell-shocked. And again, we're going back to the question I had before that I broached to you, and then Matt Nagy came in and interrupted us with his word salad. To give another answer, Christian, do you believe that change will be made this week? Will Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, or even Chuck Pagano lose their job this week after yet another win or another loss? I mean, how many in a row is this now? 6?
6.
They went from 5-1 to 5-7. Is there any change that will be made in the immediate future?
Yeah, I mean, first time since 2002 that they've lost 6 in a row. So it's been a while, needless to say. But, I still think, and, the Bears, they've never made any changes mid-season. But obviously there is a first time for everything. If I had to say one way or the other, I think they still stay impact. And I think everybody's still around for next week's game against the Houston Texans. Now, I'm not sure, I don't know why I feel that way. I think just knowing the history of this franchise and, they stuck out or that they, Mark Trestman and company, they kind of rode their thing out. And then once the season ended, the day after, Black Monday, they call it, that's when changes were made with both Phil Emery and Mark Trestman. All you hear about is the respect and how much the upper brass likes Ryan Pace. So I think if there's any changes made, it would be to the coaching staff, and that would be Pace telling, hey, Matt Nagy, you really got to get things shored up. And if not, then either your ass is grass or you got to start looking at some of your other guys. What's going on now? The defense has really started to let up these last couple of games. I was talking to Jake right before we went on, and, all right, you kind of expect to lose against the Green Bay Packers in that fashion. Maybe not. But the way that this game just unraveled in the final 5 minutes of the game against the Detroit Lions that Matt Nagy has never lost to, Mitch Trubisky, we know his stats against this team since coming into the NFL. For this team, for this defense also, I mean, you got to look at the defense as well.
Yep.
Matt Stafford and company, they drove right down the field, and this is a beat-up Detroit Lions offense. I mean, they're without their starting running back, rookie DeAndre Swift, who should have won the game in week 1. He wasn't even a factor today. He was out. And then their number 1 wide receiver, Kenny Galladay, was out for this game as well. You had Marvin Jones looking like Marvin Jones of old from his time in Cincinnati. I mean, 8 receptions, over 115 yards and a touchdown. I mean, you got to look at all phases to this football team. And with that, I mean, again, to answer your question, I don't know why I feel this way. I don't think changes will be made this week, but should changes be made? Absolutely. But I'm not sure that this is going to be the week that does it.
It's crazy to me because it's time. Because what we just saw in those last 2 minutes, because you're right, the Packers game's tough, but we're used to getting our asses whooped by the Green Bay Packers. Today was a little different in that, normally we can take the Lions home and finish them off. But what happened in those last 2 minutes was everything that the Bears have had problems with in the last 2 years, from play calling to offensive line blocking in the pivotal moment and Mitchell Trubisky or whatever quarterback not making the play or making the biggest mistake of the game. To me, the biggest surprise, though, of all the biggest trends we've seen in the last 2 years, and even a little bit in the latter portion of 2018, is this defense. You mentioned it. You got to look at all phases. And now all of a sudden the defense gave up 500 yards to Matt Stafford this week. And I know Matt Stafford's a good quarterback, but at the same time, the way they play back, you see so many people talk about it on Twitter, and I'm no football aficionado. I'm no tape junkie, but I know playing off defense when I see it. And they're playing way too off, Christian. How can Chuck Pagano honestly look at the media with a straight face and say, I can't make any adjustments next week after these last 2 weeks of just, I mean, it's a free-for-all. Everybody is wide open. I see Berlissimo talking about getting destroyed by the zone all game long. How could they just continue to go back to that well when they're constantly getting beat by it?
Well, especially this game. This is an opponent where you can take risks. You can blitz guys against the Detroit Lions, especially when you have that 10-point lead. I know you want to play safe. You have the 10-point lead. You know, you don't want to do anything crazy.
You saw the adjustments made by the Lions. They started blitzing Mitch, and then all of a sudden Mitch wasn't getting chunk yardage.
Exactly. And again, I mean, that's the indictment on this coaching staff, man. And, you know, it all starts at top. I mean, you look at Ryan Pace and the team that he's constructed, you know, he's spent a lot of money on the defensive side of the football. You guys were saying it during the press conference. I mean, where the hell is Robert Quinn at? I'm still looking for Robert Quinn. Marquinhos Mingo is making more plays on the defensive side of the football, and he's making the veteran minimum on this team.
Yeah, and much better Hicks was back this week,
right?
You know, it is truly baffling.
He was invisible, pretty much.
And it's for me, they have talent on that side of the ball. So to me, it speaks more to losing that grip on the locker room, because that's what we've seen in the last week. On Twitter, we're seeing these guys venting their frustrations now more openly, and we're not there at the game, so you're not seeing it kind of unravel in person like you normally can. So now, to me, the peel behind the curtain is all these players starting to take to Twitter to talk about their frustrations, and now you see them completely fall apart, and you see the guys looking on the sidelines. I'm sorry, this look right here to me wasn't meant for. I know everybody hates the quarterback in this town, and it's fine. Mitchell Trubisky's days are done here, but that look he is giving is for the head coach, because there's no way they should have lost that game. Whether the coaching on how Nagy talks about, oh, well, that 95-yard drive, we wish we could have slowed him down a little more. You're in charge of that. What are you talking about? And then, you know, Mitchell Trubisky, oh, well, he made a nice play. He got around the edge and forced the fumble. Run the ball. You make them use their timeouts at the very least. We all saw the momentum starting to turn as soon as they got the touchdown, but don't exacerbate the problem by calling back-to-back passing plays on 2nd and 3rd down. It's unacceptable, and it causes your team to lose the game. They've done it so many times over the last 2 years. Games are won and lost by 3 points every game. That's why the Vegas spread is 3 points. And so it's up to coaching to make those differences. Fine. Mitch is the low-hanging fruit. He makes the terrible, glaring mistake. We can all pile it on Mitch. But guess what? When we get rid of Mitch and when they don't get rid of Nagy, these problems are going to happen. And that's why Jake and I were kind of talking behind the text scene, and I was still holding on to that sliver of hope. We got 5 games left, and they're all winnable games to me. None of these teams they're playing coming up are world beaters. And no, it wouldn't have helped the clarity of the franchise, but as the meatball fan, I wanted to see the chaos. Now they lose, and it's like every time we get to this point, it's like, all right, fire them all and lose out. Let's get that draft pick, baby. But it's like caught between the rock and a hard place. You know, I joke about it, but I'd almost rather see them go back to full so I don't even have to worry about it, because I know that Minnesota and Arizona aren't going to ever truly extend the wild card lead enough to where we're out of it. So they're just going to keep trying to win games each week. But, man, after 6 straight beatdowns and then this one, I'm not excited going into any Sunday anymore.
No, and we still have Houston and Jacksonville on the schedule that you would think would be winnable games. Now we have no idea what this football.
Well, and as embarrassing as these last 2 weeks are, now we're starting to stack the deck on embarrassing losses. You go from Green Bay embarrassment to Lions collapse embarrassment. Now the Texans are coming up, and we're going to have Deshaun Watson counting to 12 on his hands and toes. And then the next game, we're going to have Mike freaking Glennon. And you just almost know it as a Bears fan. We're going to get beat by these guys, and we're going to be the joke of the town. At some point, the house has to get cleaned. We've talked a lot. We had Adam Johns on Friday, and we talked about, Ted Phillips and his role and some different options, but you just have to think, these guys are sitting at, I know Jake's favorite picture. She has to make the decision. The last time they cleaned house, it was because Virginia was pissed off. Are you pissed off now, Virginia?
Should be pissed off. Well, not in these 6 straight losses. Not only have you lost 6 straight games, but you've dropped 3 straight divisional games, and you can't have that if you expect to go anywhere in this league. So, you know what I mean. Even get in the playoffs, you have to win your division games. You have to be a contender in your division. So, I mean, that just kind of adds to the embarrassment there. And
let me ask you this, because it's in the chat, and we talked a lot about it a little at the back end of our show on Friday night about Jim Harbaugh. There was a report out this morning, and of course it was from Jason Lockcomfora, so it was widely dismissed by all of Bears Twitter, and rightfully so. But the report is out there nonetheless. So I would like to hear your thoughts on this, Christian Shannon, because we see Jim Harbaugh mentioned in the chat, but it was broached that maybe Pat Fitzgerald is someone the Bears are looking at as a head coaching candidate going into next year. Do you have any interest in these college names that I've just said?
I mean, Jim Harbaugh, he's kind of been there, done that. He led a San Francisco 49ers football team to the Super Bowl. They ended up losing, of course, to his brother and the Baltimore Ravens, but Pat Fitzgerald, I love what he's got going on there at Northwestern. And it's been said, I feel like the last week or two all over, radio and TV. I think he's got the perfect situation there. Now, obviously, if he were to leave, maybe it would be for the team that he watched growing up, the Chicago Bears. If he ever wanted to give the NFL a try, it would be with the Chicago Bears. Of course, if the Bears were open to bringing him in. But I'm not so sure I'm sold on bringing in a college head coach, a defensive-minded coach that, I mean, he seems more like a rah-rah guy that I'm not so sure his approach to the game will really translate to the NFL. I'll be flat out honest. I mean, it's great to have a great defense and you're paying these defensive players. We're seeing it. You need to have an elite you need to score points in this NFL. You need to score.
They're not calling holding anymore. These guys are running free everywhere. You see how fast people put it on. I mean, look at the Kansas City Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl. They were dead to rights, 9 minutes left in the game. They scored 3 touchdowns just like that. The Lions dead to rights today. Obviously a lesser comparison, but boom, 2 touchdowns just like that. Obviously the turnover helped that in a big way, but you're 100% right. Start with the quarterback and work yourself from there. That's how you build in the NFL now. And they have the pieces. I saw on Twitter, you actually shared an interesting graphic with Darnell Mooney. They flashed on the screen. He's had 60 plus targets with 0 drops on the season. He's one of the few shining spots on this offense. You saw at one point, they actually threw him a crossing route when they blitzed the house on 3rd down. I've been yelling for this for weeks. It seems so obvious. How big? I mean, where is Darnell Mooney on your receiver chart? Is he number 2 official pass? Because I know Anthony Miller had a nice day too. He's obviously had his drops and miscues in his past. Darnell Mooney certainly seems to be rising in the charts here.
Yeah, I think Darnell Mooney is unquestionably the number 2 on this team. I mean, it seems like whether it's Foles or Mitch Trubisky, they seem to have more trust in him than an Anthony Miller, and probably rightfully so, at least so far this season. Anthony Miller, it was nice to see him kind of get going there in the second quarter. He had himself a decent game. But yeah, I think as of right now, Darnell Mooney, unquestionably the number 2 on this team. And you're gonna have to start looking forward to next season. Obviously, you're losing 6 in a row. You're now 5-7. I don't know about you guys. I'm not very confident about Allen Robinson returning to this football team. So it's going to be a position that you're going to have to address in the offseason, because as much as I do like Darnell Mooney, I don't want him to be my team's number 1 wide receiver going into next season.
No, you'd want somebody, and maybe they franchise tag Allen Robinson, but then that's a lot of money you're investing into the one spot for 1 year, but that's certainly on the table for them. And then if they didn't, then I'd be looking into the draft at guys like, I don't know, Waddle from I like Waddle from
I'll take another Waddle in Chicago.
I want Waddle on this team so badly for obvious reasons, but I want Waddle on this team. He'd be my number one. And then my other wide receiver is Rondale Moore from Purdue. That dude's a baller. Another graphic that came across the screen during the game. Here we go again. Not scoring in the third quarter, and that pretty much set the tone for the Bears losing this game. You want to blame all the different things that happened in the fourth quarter, but once again, the Bears had all this momentum at halftime, and then they come out the second gate tunnel, they get the stop, the offense just putters, and the defense is a part of it too because they're not getting off the field, but what does this say about Matt Nagy? Because we just talked about it, in-game adjustments. You saw Detroit make the adjustment on Mitchell Trubisky to kind of shake him up, not let him just sit back there and pick them apart. Where is Matt Nagy's adjustments? I mean, I don't see anything when he comes out the second half tunnel or coming off a bye or coming into the first week of the season. This team is never prepared. And everybody's got their eyes on the quarterback, but it just seems to me that there's a serious coaching issue in this city.
I mean, I think that's what says it all. I mean, you come out of the bye and you get smacked by the Green Bay Packers in that fashion. I mean, 41-25. Anybody watching that football game knows that score, and I feel like I've said this after many games in this 6-game losing streak, that score was not that scoreboard does not indicate exactly how far away that game was, exactly how big of a victory that the Green Bay Packers had in that football game. But yeah, so the Bears, off the bye week, they come out and they look like that against the Green Bay Packers. Now you factor in that image that you just showed on the screen. They've only scored 7 points in the third quarter all season long. I mean, what are you doing in halftime? What's the conversations like among yourself, among the players, the coaching staff? What adjustments are you making?
I like in this graphic how they added the bye for us just to help us with the goose and break up the goose eggs on this. Unbelievable, Christian.
At this point, they could have just added another 0 there for the bye week because
it's a win though when we don't play because then we're not embarrassing ourselves. It's just so frustrating to know that we've gotten to this point. I mean, these were some of the words thrown around last week, and I'd certainly some of the sentiments carried over here today. For me, it is looking forward now, trying to figure out, are they going to do a president of football operations? We got everybody beating the drum in this city for that. Mark Silverman, Sylvie from ESPN 1000's doing his best to try to make that happen. And then, of course, the GM and the head coach are at the forefront. It's hard it sucks as a fan because you still have games in front of you. But now you just want to fast forward to the offseason and fix this. It's a total nightmare and a total mess. And to me, if they could just wipe the slate clean, at least that could be palatable enough for Bears fans to sign up for the new beginnings and building toward.
Yeah. Well, there goes Greg.
It's then the scary thought of allowing Brian Pace or Matt Nagy pick the next quarterback. When, maybe Nagy's good at picking quarterbacks. I've heard his whole theory or Kaplan talking about his evaluation of the quarterbacks that came out in 2017. But even then, what's his system and his philosophy? He doesn't seem to know that, so it's so much easier to wipe the slate.
Yeah. I mean, he's after this is why, I understand the Bears don't like to do things early, but this is, I think, one of those instances where it probably pays off just to make a move and start clearing things out because you got a lot of teams that are going to be looking to make changes. And there's going to be a lot of coaching openings and a lot of other teams looking for general managers and what you're going to do. It just seems to make sense to just get the ball rolling and start organizing yourself to prepare for that.
I don't know. You guys think that the Lions will keep their
Greg, you're breaking up real bad.
He's someone that came over from the Seattle defense, that vaunted defense. Do you think that Darrell Bevell could keep his job in Detroit and eliminate one of those spots? Because that's where I'm worried, or maybe I don't know if worried's the right word, but I am curious because the Harbaugh and the Fitzgerald thoughts, they're not great, and I'm not the one to say that would be my first pick, but if the Bears do fire their guys, I'm looking at this list. Chris Black and Adam Abdallah brought it up. the Bears might be 6th or 7th on top destinations to want to go to if you're a coaching candidate. So then all of a sudden we might have to take someone who wants to come to us, like a Pat Fitzgerald or a Jim Harbaugh. So that's where I'm wondering, do you guys think maybe the Lions will hold on to Darrell Bevell, or do you think they're going to move on from him?
I think it's a possibility. I mean, they obviously played very inspired for him today. It was and this isn't a terrible Detroit Lions team, but they would just have these collapses late in the game, and obviously we know all about that. And then you start looking at the coaching staff. They get rid of Matt Patricia. It seemed like since day one that was kind of a shady or not a great hire for Detroit. I mean, you've seen, especially this past offseason, the players that left there and the what they're talking about was going on in the locker room.
And you're seeing that now with our team.
Right.
That's what's scaring me is those kind of things. Yeah, it's so obvious with Matt Patricia making fun of the reporters, and then you got the defensive back that went to Philadelphia, Slay, going in on him on Twitter. But guess what? Kyle Long's been going in on Matt Nagy all season.
Yeah, he was doing it while we're on the show. While we're on the show.
You got Tariq and Anthony Miller and Allen Robinson and all these different guys, Javon Wims, subtle jabs at Matt Nagy. And so now, the team is falling apart again, and I'm worried that's where we're at with this very team. It's the writing is so on the wall.
It depends on how we handle this too. If the Bears, just say for the sake of conversation, the Bears clean house, and let's just say for sake of conversation, you bring in somebody like a well-respected football, president of football operations, and maybe that person, just for conversation, is Peyton Manning or something. Okay, and then you hire a GM that people respect. I mean, those hirings go far as well with what head coach wants to come to the Bears, because if you get those hires right, it's going to still be more enticing. You're going to get the opportunity to choose a quarterback. You're going to have security with these guys. I still feel like the Bears are a destination franchise for a lot of coaches. When you come to Chicago and you win, you are a legend. So I do think that even though we don't have a quarterback right now, I still think that guys would want to be a coach for the Chicago Bears. I still believe that in my heart of hearts that they will want to do that, and lining up the proper hirings, maybe at football or president of football operations, or especially a GM, will make that decision all the easier for some of these candidates.
Let me ask you guys this. It looks like Vic Fangio may lose his job in Denver, and it's been like night and day since he's left this defense. I'm not saying for a head coaching candidate, because I can see you're shaking your head, Jake, and I'm not going there because I'd like an offensive coach too. It's where the league is going, and we tried it with Matt and swung and missed, but that doesn't mean we should just go to defense because it didn't work with Matt. But I am asking you guys, and I'll start with you, Christian, do you think that Vic Fangio could come back as a defensive coordinator? I did hear a lot of stuff about how much he enjoyed his time in Chicago, and we're certainly missing him right now as Bears fans with the way this defense has looked since he's left.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, I don't think Pagano is back next year. I mean, this defense has been pretty inconsistent. I think, especially as of late, but I think, for Vic Fangio, he's had success with this team. He's had success with this defense. Does he come back? I think a lot will determine who the head coach will be. If it's still Nagy, it seemed like they had a really good relationship here. Nagy pretty much handed him the keys and said, "Hey, you're the defensive coach. It's all yours. Do what you got to do." He seems to have done the same thing with Chuck Pagano, and we see it hasn't had the same effect. So I think if that opportunity presents itself, I would absolutely go after Vic Fangio. I think if somehow Matt Nagy returns here as head coach, I think that's going to be something that Nagy's definitely going to look hard at. And I mean, this was the number one defense in the NFL in 2018. I mean, this defense did things that was out of the ordinary, scoring touchdowns left to right. Eddie Jackson was playing his best football. He was getting the most out of Khalil Mack. I would absolutely go back and give Vic Fangio a call if Denver decides to make that change.
Completely with you on that. I mean, that would be godsend, honestly, if we could get him back. But I guess it'll ultimately depend on what head coaching candidate we bring in. I have been a strong proponent. Jake brought it up too. We were talking about president of football operations. I have been someone that has, because it has caught fire here in the last few months now that it seems like the obvious move to make. But ever since I saw Peyton Manning come to Hallis Hall a few years ago and buddy up with my baby boy, Mitchell Trubisky, I always kind of looked at him like, man, this guy would be perfect. I know he's a cold, and I honestly, Jake can contest, I hated this dude. I hated on this dude so much as a player. Tom Brady would work. I won so much money on people that thought Peyton Manning would beat Tom Brady head to head, and I always knew Peyton would choke, and he always did, and I won so much money. But now that he's past his career and he's done, making me look bad as a hater, I want him on the Bears as my president of football operations. I know there's some more qualified candidates out there, and I've heard all the different names, but to me, I want to take a home run shot here. He's never had, no, he doesn't have experience, but you don't get experience until you get experience. And I just see a guy that players and coaches would want to play under. There you see a picture of her with Virginia McCaskey at Wrigley Field, the former home of the Chicago Bears. I'm all Peyton Manning for president of football operations. What say you to this radical idea?
So first and foremost, I mean, I would absolutely love that. I want somebody that has some type of football experience, somebody that knows what's going on to go and handle the, Ted Phillips has no experience, and it's been well documented now, and he's been with the team for over 20 years now, and it's just not going anywhere. We're this type of season that the Bears are having right now. I mean, a great start, but what was everybody saying? Oh, they're the worst 5-1 team in NFL history. And you look back at those games, and they got lucky every single game. DeAndre Swift drops the pass in the end zone. Even the New York Giants, one of their receivers drops a pass late in the game there. Atlanta had one of those Atlanta Falcon legendary meltdowns that they seem to have had five, six of them already this season, and it dates back to that Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. This team, while they got off to that hot start, I think they were set up for failure because, even heading into this season, I don't think anybody really expected a great season, a great team this year. There is still some flaws on this team, and for them to get off to that hot start, and now we see they're down, losing 6 in a row, it makes it that much more disappointing. But I would be all in on bringing in Peyton Manning. I would be all in on even any other candidates that have some type of football experience.
What are you? Do you have any names specifically? I know who was the former GM of the Ravens that I keep seeing his name brought up. What about GM? Are there any specific names you have in mind for GM or head coach? President of football operations, I think, is something a lot of fans would love to see the Bears do, but might be a pipe dream at this point. I do believe, it seems obvious that the GM and head coach are going to be switched out here. Are there any names that you have specifically that you'd like to see the Bears look at?
Yeah, the interesting one for me is, and everybody's brought this name up, Louis Riddick. I'm not sure I would go that route because then you're probably handcuffing yourself at least for another year or two with Matt Nagy. We all know that they have a relationship that goes back to their days in Philadelphia. So that's one name to consider. He's gotten a few interviews here and there the last couple of years. But, you mentioned the former Ravens GM. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. Former great player, Pro Football Hall of Famer.
DaCosta?
No. Man, it's just on the tip of my tongue. Give me a second and I'll figure it out.
Anyways, he turned that organization around. He turned it into a winning organization.
Ozzie Newsome.
Ozzie Newsome. I should slap myself for not knowing that. But yeah, he turned that organization into a winner and a constant winner. And it kind of went downhill a little bit after they paid Joe Flacco after that Super Bowl victory. But you had to pay the guy after the streak that he went on in the playoffs and then the Super Bowl itself. And, that kind of made the team fall apart a little bit. They lost some key defensive pieces, but now look at where they're at now. A struggling season thus far. And obviously with COVID, you just never know who's going to suit up week in and week out. It sounds like Lamar Jackson's going to come back for them this year, but Lamar Jackson was his last first-round draft pick. And while he hasn't had that great of a season this year, last year he was a unanimous MVP decision. So, I mean, Ozzie Newsome, if he has any interest in coming back, running a football team, if I'm the Chicago Bears, I'm absolutely giving him a phone call. But yeah, Peyton Manning, Ozzie Newsome, I'm all for him, man. I mean, I think Ted Phillips' time, I mean, his time has come to an end here in Chicago, or it needs to come to an end here in Chicago.
Chubbs was hiding in the chat. Normally he's all fired up talking in the chat. There he is, bringing up the guys, because I was just about to bring you up, Chubbs, with Greg Olsen as the head coach coming from the Oakland Raiders offensive coordinator position. I think Chubbs is onto something here because, like I said, some of the top head coaching candidates might not want to come to Chicago because you can go coach Deshaun Watson, or you can go to Jacksonville with a clean slate and free agent money up the yin-yang. Here in Chicago, you might have to go for a guy that's outside the box. I like this Greg Olsen idea because I was firsthand witness to the game in London last year where the Raiders beat the brakes off the Bears. And honestly, that was kind of the moment everything is kind of turned for the entire Bears organization. They've slapped in a mouth that I don't think they've recovered from since. And it came from an offensive line that was smash mouth. And when I watch them, because I don't watch too much Raiders football, all dialed into Chicago Bears, I see a lot of smash mouth football, play action pass, deep ball down the field, use that speed. Do you think Greg Olsen is somebody you'd like to see as a head coaching candidate?
Well, I mean, you just laid it out. I mean, certainly it's enticing. It is. And the Raiders, they've proven even this year, they were able to keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs, but then they dropped one against the Atlanta Falcons in ugly fashion. I think it was 45-6. So I'm going to have to, before I consider that or go too in depth in that name, I got to go and see what went wrong against the Atlanta Falcons. I think they got the 31st, 32nd ranked defense. I got to see what happened in that game. If that was a coaching disaster, if that was on the players. I know Derek Carr didn't have that great of a game because he's on my fantasy football team and he got me negative 0.6 points. But so Greg Olsen, I mean, he's been a name that has been in the league for a very long time at that offensive coordinator position. He's another guy that has gotten head coaching interviews. So, I mean, certainly I'll have to go back and look at what the offense has done. But you look back at that showing from last year in London against the Bears, Greg, and like you said, the Bears have not recovered since. And that was supposed to be one of these statement games, Khalil Mack revenge game. It's your first time playing against the Raiders since making that trade, and John Gruden and company were able to get the last laugh. But Greg Olsen, he's probably going to be one of those hotter names in the coaching search this season, off season.
100% agree. There's a lot of names to consider. Dave Tobe from the special teams old days of the Chicago Bears. I used to joke with him at training camp I'd get him a job as a head coach. I never followed through with that, unfortunately. But if he comes to the Bears, I'll take credit for it. But I'm not against guys like that just because. Look at Jim Harbaugh. You want to wipe away special teams coaches. Look at John Harbaugh with the Ravens. You get the right offensive and defensive coordinators in place, and then you get a good coach like that knows both sides of the ball. That's not out of the realm of possibility. But, smarter minds than me are going to figure all this out. I just want the Bears to be successful. So I thought Matt Nagy was going to be that guy, and I've been dead wrong on that. I've been dead wrong on a lot of things. So stay tuned to Bragson. It stands for a lot of dead wrong analysis. And that's why we bring on.
Greg really wanted Matt Patricia to be our head coach.
I liked Matt Patricia. I liked Matt Patricia because he had the pencil in his ear. And I liked Deshaun Kaiser being drafted by the Bears in the second round and not Mitchell Trubisky. So don't listen to me is the key to the moral of the story here. But I make sure to say that at the end of the show, not at the beginning, to make sure people watch. So
I think whoever the Bears are looking at needs to be able to develop a quarterback. Needs to be able to develop some players. That's something that, I mean, whatever Mitchell Trubisky is, and he's not a great quarterback, you could say he was developed extremely poorly in his time in Chicago. And if that's something that I would be looking for in a head coach, or at least a quality staff that could develop a quarterback, because the Bears are going to be positioned more than likely to be drafting a quarterback in this draft. And you need someone that can maximize those players. So that to me is priority number one. So I wouldn't be super thrilled about, as much as I like Dave Tobe, I wouldn't be thrilled to have a guy like that necessarily when I know that they need, we need to be able to develop these players and keep them here in Chicago for the long haul. So that's just my 2 cents. I love Virginia.
It's like the what do they call that at the top of the screen? They talk about it in Fight Club, the movie, when they're changing the reel and there's the cigarette.
He puts in the frame.
Yeah, the extra frame. I just got to do it real quick every once in a while, Christian. It brings a smile to my co-host's face.
It's gonna haunt Matt's streams tonight. Is
like this
Virginia.
one doesn't make you laugh as much, but
No.
it kind of
It's a joke that he's holding a football helmet, though.
We've got a lot of funny pictures, and we laugh to keep ourselves from crying here on Brags in the Stands.
This is that's Matt's crying room now. He just goes in there and looks at all the play sheets from days gone by.
100%. You know, we do have a bunch of people in the chat, so I want to share this along one more time, you know, on our post-game show for those that missed on Friday night. But this was this is Mark Silverman's message to the front office pertaining to everything we've been talking about when talking about tearing it down and starting from the top. And I do think it pertains to our conversation here, so I do want to share along again.
Same old shit. The same old shit. Let's face it, Bears fans, year after year against the Packers, they're the hammer, we're the nail. Year after year, another year without the postseason, another year without a quarterback, another year without a good offense. We've got to get this to stop. So while we're talking about Nagy, while we're talking about Trubisky and Foles, while we're talking about Pace, never forget this, Bears fans. We need you, and we need you to put the heat on them. It starts at the top. Repeat after me. It starts at the top. Decade after decade with no Super Bowl. 20 plus years with the same team president and 3 playoff game wins. 3. George, you want to win. You care. You had Virginia at the game. Changes are needed. You must restructure, please. And then we'll hire the right general manager. Then we'll draft the right quarterback. And then we'll hire the right coach. And then we'll win another Super Bowl. But seeing that guy telling everyone that he's number one again at Lambeau Field with 40-plus points on the board and the Bears looking only good in garbage time, not good enough, Bears fans. Repeat after me. It starts at the top. We need to band together. Remember, Bears fans, it starts at the top.
There he is, Mark Silverman from ESPN 1000. And aside from, referencing the Packers beatdown, those words are going to be relevant every week, every game when they're finished. I could play that to start my postgame every game for the rest of the year, and it's going to hold relevance because we can talk about everything. We can talk about the defensive miscues, the same old mistakes, the offensive line missing their assignments, Mitch Trubisky making the glaring mistake, the bad play calls, this, that, and the other. We can talk about all that all day, but none of it's going to change until they start at the top. And I do think, with the power of social media, we're not at the games to voice our frustrations. We do need to continue to apply the pressure on the Bears organization to make a move. It's fun to hype this team up when they're good, but, it's our responsibility too as fans to make sure we hold these guys in check when we want better from them too. So, I definitely think that's something to consider for Bears fans. We can argue about all the little nuts and bolts all we want, but we got to get to the foundation first to build this house. And I completely agree with Mark Silverman. It starts at the top, even though a house is technically built from the bottom up, but I digress. Christian,
at the bottom up. There we go.
Christian, we appreciate you coming on today. You're a great follow on Twitter. And why don't you give everyone that's watching right now, a little, advice on how they can find you and all the different social media platforms, because you do such great work.
I appreciate it, man. I was really looking forward to this. So thank both you, Greg, and Jake for having me on today. Unfortunate that we're talking about a Bears meltdown against the Detroit Lions. It also says something when former players are speaking out on this team as well. You guys mentioned Kyle Long. I see Matt Forte has been on a little rant as well. Lovie Smith won 10 games and got fired, but that's none of my business. He goes, just throw the whole offense away, coaches included. So, it says something when former players are speaking out against this team as well, and they're not happy with the current situations and where this franchise is headed. But yeah, again, thanks so much for having me on, you guys. My name's Chris Shanafelt. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Shanafelt. You see the spelling right there. And yeah, I host a podcast with former Bear DJ Moore. Had Greg on last week, and certainly not the last time that Greg will be on. Had a great time. Had Earl Bennett on last week, Chris Emma from The Score. So we try to get some guests in here and there as well. We'll be on doing our post-game show in about 3 hours, 7 o'clock Central Time. So be sure to check that out. The live stream could be found on both YouTube and my Twitter as well. And then, of course, iTunes and Spotify once we go off the air. But again, you guys, I wish we were talking about a Bears victory. Instead, we're talking about a Bears disaster, but really appreciate you guys having me on.
Of course, man. It was fun chopping it up, and I do appreciate you having me on as your first ever guest on your video show with the Chris and DJ show, DJ Moore. It was a great thrill. Now you're getting the real deal guest with Earl Bennett. That's what I know. You were like, you're my first guest. I was like, why me? I was laughing, cracking up, but hey, I tried my best to bring the heat and give my Meatball Trubisky love fan takes. But those are soon to be gone, Bears fans. Next year, we'll have a slate that's wiped clean, and we can start focusing on the Bears winning games and stop arguing about Mitchell Trubisky. But we're still got 4 games to go. Again, Christian, we appreciate your time tonight, and we'll be tuning in tonight at 7 p.m. Central, correct? For the Chris and DJ show. We'll be sure to share it along to our viewers and followers as well. We're always good for that. So we'll catch you soon, Christian, and we'll bring you on Brags and Stance. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, good talking to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Greg and Jake. Take care.
Christian Shanafelt of the Chris and DJ show. DJ Moore, former defensive back from Vanderbilt University and the Chicago Bears. So before we jet, I don't know if you can see here, I got a picture of it. I tried to sneak my phone in so I could add a few pictures, but I did want to promote this shirt. We had Mike Schaefer on from Deep Dish Tees a few weeks ago on our pregame show to promote his neck gaiters that you saw Matt Nagy wearing on the sidelines a few weeks ago. He also has this shirt for sale in his inventory on deepdishtees.com. And what's cool about this shirt is it's the beer man Terry Miller, no relation to Anthony Miller, but it's they focused on him on the We the Fans documentary that Mike Schaefer was a part of, and he's a beer vendor in the section that Mike Schaefer sits in his season tickets for the Chicago Bears. And what's cool about it, if you buy this shirt, all the proceeds go to Terry Miller and his family, and as you know, all the service workers that work at Soldier Field aren't making any money this year. So, if you pick up one of these shirts, not only is it a great, cool custom design made by Mike and Deep Dish Tees, you give a little money back to the hardworking people of Soldier Field, one Terry Miller. So I definitely wanted to make sure I shouted that out before we go.
For sure.
I got my eyes on Peyton Manning, Jake. I got my eyes on Peyton Manning, the super fan. Look at him. I never thought I'd be begging for Peyton Manning, former Colt that ripped my little Greg heart out in 2006 when I don't know how little I was. I was probably pretty big, and I was pretty drunk because we had just turned 21 when the Chicago Bears made the Super Bowl. So, everything felt great, up until after the first kick, and then everything else was kind of a blur after that. But I want Peyton Manning as my guy at the top. Sylvie beats that drum, and we continue to play that clip here. That's what I'm looking at. We can talk about all the little different things like we tried to today, but at the end of the day, it does start at the top. So I'm focused on that from here on out.
I'm open to that. I'm open to just hire the right people, and if Peyton Manning is that guy, great. But, the McCaskeys aren't going anywhere. So that's just our reality. So hopefully George is smart enough to really restructure this, because They've had the go around with Emery that was a disaster. They had the go around now with Pace, which is ending up to be very catastrophic for the Bears. Not taking Watson or obviously Patrick Mahomes, taking one Mitchell Trubisky, really unloading a lot of money into the defense. The defense was the difference maker today of why you're losing a game, which should not be happening. Put us in a pretty big hole. So let's let's restructure this team properly and get the right guys in place and make a change.
I'm not saying Peyton Manning is the end all be all, because I see Chubbs, one of our loyal listeners or viewers here on Brags in the Stands, and he hates that I keep bringing up Peyton Manning, but I do resent that it has become the popular name amongst Bears Twitter, and even nationally you're starting to see that kind of hinted. But I've been saying this for a few years now. Like I said, the first time I brought it up was when he was in Hallis Hall hanging out with the Chicago Bears, not just Mitch, but all over the Chicago scene. And to me, he does have the attributes of a guy that could be a successful president of football operations. I'm not saying he makes every decision, is in the room with the GM for every little decision on the team. I just think he would be a great face to the franchise. He has all the attributes that you need. Does he have the credentials or the resume? No, he's never had the position. But to me, it wouldn't surprise me in the least to see him go to another team and be a successful president of football operations. So if I believe that, why wouldn't I want it for my own team? And some people say, oh, well, it's just a trendy thing. Fine. That's what it's become because, Peyton Manning's in the forefront of the media. But you saw, the Raiders were mocked when they got Mike Mayock and John Gruden back up to be their head coach and GM. Would you take Mike Mayock from NFL Network right now to be, running your football club? I would take it over what we're doing right now. I would personally. So, I'm not saying we could do worse. I understand the pushback, and I understand guys that are qualified for the job. Fine. And I did hear that Peyton Manning had said that Adam Gase should be the coach of the Jets. So if those words ever come out of your mouth, yes, that's a red flag, but I'm not going to disqualify people, just for one bad thought, because I'd certainly be disqualified because
How would you feel if Peyton Manning was the president and he brings Adam Gase to Chicago to be the head coach?
No. That would never happen. You
said you don't know if we're going to be a coach that's going to be, wanting to come here. So
I can't even sign off if he ever said that, but a few people said it to me on Twitter, so I'm sure it's true. So, I'm sorry. I'm just saying.
We'll see. It's a lot of
to think outside the box.
It's a lot of anything is better than what we're dealing with situation
100%.
too. So obviously,
I'm just saying with the whole Peyton Manning thing, I've been saying that for 2 years. So now everybody's jumping on it. So I don't want to look like this. I don't want people thinking I'm the bandwagon jumper to this idea. And I hate I said it first crap, but I did. I said it first. So I don't care. I'm staking my claim to it. And if it never happens, fine. But I like the fit. There's Virginia and Peyton chucking it up. That's what I see. That's what I see. And I know Chubbs would say this. Said, I will shut up and let you all get back to football. We've been on for an hour. It's been a good reaction show. A shocker of a game. I certainly thought the Bears were going to win today. That didn't happen. Jake got his wish. Bears are on the tank
for the best, guys. I'm sorry, but it's for the best.
It's like a Band-Aid rip, maybe a little worse. But I think we all have kind of seen this coming down the pike. So I think that wraps things up for today's Brags in the Stands post-game show edition. I want to thank Christian Stanifelt from the Chris and DJ show for giving us all his time today and for inviting me on his podcast a few times. Christian is a great follow on Bears Twitter, and his show is really, really informing with DJ Moore, kind of giving the players' point of view of things. So make sure you check out his work. I want to thank everybody in the chat once again for hanging out here. Yes, Pedro, we're done for the day. We'll be back on Friday. We have a very special guest coming on Friday, and I know a lot of people are going to have their ears up when we announce who that special guest is.
Please be kind in the chat.
And I know Chubbs will be his ears up, so we'll give him this warning right now because we're not going to tell him who it is, but we are going to say on Friday, hang out with us on Brags in the Stands, and you can get some really informed discussion on what's going on with the Chicago Bears. So please keep it respectful in the chat while we have our special guest coming in, giving us their time. So,
especially after this week,
especially after this week, and that's a little teaser of what's to come. But I do want to thank everybody from Bearlissimo hanging out all the way across the pond in Birmingham, UK, and our guy Chubbs got his radar just up right where it needs to be. And my guy Pedro, what? Jake to smile more.
Let me smile more for you.
The way I can get Jake to smile is with this party.
That gets me every time. That beauty. My goodness.
Beauty every time. So that wraps things up. I've talked to the music.
Do the music again. That's okay. It's tradition.
Friday night. Thank you to everybody. This is Braggs in the Stands signing out. Have a good day. Bears suck.